Hope everybody out there is doing okay today. Um, we've had all this election stuff going on here in the last few days. It's just been kind of crazy. I think we all need to put that in a little bit of perspective. Um, if you think about it, what really has a president done to affect change in your life, over the time you've been on this planet, in this country? It just seems to kind of change back and forth, and the powers that be they stay in power. The Pelosi's and the Schumers and the Mitch McConnells and all these people, and for some reason we feel like we have to draw these lines in the sand as far as who we're going to vote for president. And really, it doesn't matter. We're going to get the same thing year after year. But what I do want to address is something that I'm going to work on developing a platform to discuss. It's not going to be easy, but it's something that has never necessarily been fixed. It's been a gaping wound in the foundation of our country for a very long time. And you can see the overflow of the frustration, and the people that have been marginalized, downtrodden, and had to come up in a world where the starting line was not the same. And I can't sit here as a white man in Wyoming, and I cannot say what it's like to be a black individual growing up in this country. I can't. There's no way that I can do that. But I can certainly show compassion for it. And I would certainly like to think that by opening up some dialogue, having some conversations through the connections that I have with individuals that are involved in issues, with mass incarceration and prison reform, guys that I was locked up with, that we have a mutual respect for one another because we both went through that. Even though I'm just a white guy from Wyoming, I'm just a useful idiot for the most part. However, it's my hope that perhaps I can use some of the connections that I have with some really amazing people to perhaps be a conduit to purvey a message of compassion and healing towards one another and understanding. I don't know what the answer is. We talk reparations, that's one thing, but you're also talking about, a situation where, I guess what I'm saying here is that we have this, a lot of us, I certainly don't feel like a nationalist. I don't have white pride. I can't be proud of who I was born to be. It was not my choice. I was born a white man in Juneau, Alaska in 1976. I had nothing to do with that. It wasn't my choice. It's nothing for me to be proud of. I grew up out here in Wyoming, in the middle of nowhere, pretty much culturally, shanghaied from any other culture in this country. This is the least sparse. There's nobody even out here. What is there, 500,000-600,000 people in this whole state? It's a huge state, and the diversity in the state of Wyoming is not much. I'll just tell you that. I don't know where my viewpoints on race and equality came from. I definitely don't think that equality of outcome is something that we're responsible for, but I think that equality of opportunity is something that we need to look at. And there's a lot of different arguments for that. And what do? You hit a reset button. You're still going to have people making bad choices as time goes on, and it's it's going to go south for some people. That's just the way life is, I guess. But I can't imagine what it's like to be a black man getting pulled over by a police officer, when you've got a license, you've got your insurance, you're not doing anything wrong. Maybe you're speeding, maybe you didn't use a turn signal. But the idea that you think that, and I don't know what it's like, but I can imagine, the, you've got a cop coming up to your window, and you're sitting there thinking, depending on how this plays out, this might be, the end of me. You never, who knows? I mean, it's definitely a different perception than what I have when I get pulled over. If I get pulled over, I know that, I can de-escalate the situation regardless of who the cop is. And, I mean, I've had times in my life, let's face it, I've been on the rogue side of things. I've spent years, I think it was 10 years I didn't even have a driver's license, and I'd get pulled over out on the I-5 on the West Coast, and doing things I probably wasn't supposed to be doing. And I'd drive away from it, no license, no insurance, out-of-date tags, whatever. And I'd pull out of that stop and drive away. Now, if I were a black man, I wouldn't be driving away from that situation. We got to face that right now. I mean, there's no other way about it. If I were a black man and that happened to me, and the number of times it did happen to me when I drove away from those situations, if I wasn't white, it wouldn't have happened. I'd have been in prison a long time before I actually went. It's something that needs to be addressed. What's the answer? I don't know, personally. I do know that there's a problem, and it does need to be addressed. I mean, when you have a community of people that come into this world without a fighting chance, that's an issue. That's a problem. And then, people want to stereotype individuals who are born in these communities. I mean, you think about it. If you're born into a situation where your father's not around, you've got 6 or 7 brothers or sisters, you're living in a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment in a bad neighborhood, you've got gang activity everywhere, you've got violence, crimes, drugs, you've got all these different things. You can't even grow up being a kid, right? I mean, what choice do you have? I mean, there are a few people that manage to get themselves out of those places. But it's like Biggie Small says, you either got a wicked jump shot or you're slinging crack rock, And so for a lot of people, the only answer that they have is to, it's about survival. And so you've got people that are, what choice do they have other than join a gang and become involved in violence, in drugs, and and then you look at a guy like Joe Biden, who just supposedly won the presidency, who was the architect of the 1994 crime bill that incarcerated black men on a very large scale, larger than ever, and so you get into and so based on drugs, these men are being taken from their communities, from their homes, from their families, and incarcerated, and it's perpetuating, a bad situation. It's making it worse. And I spent a lot of time with these gentlemen that, were incarcerated because of that 1994 crime bill. And it was racist. It was certainly racist. I mean, that's what it was about. It was about locking up black men. And so how do you repair that? How do you fix that? How do you take a man who's done 20 years in prison, missed his children growing up, his children didn't have a father, get released, you can't get a job, you go back out there on the streets and you're trying to do anything that you can, but the tables are, you've done your time, you've paid back your debt, but yet you're still labeled as a felon, and so your options are not that many, I a lot of the cats I know, they've done really, really well, and it's always a great pleasure to see all my friends out in LA that I was locked up with, and to see the choices that these guys have made, and the routes that they've gone down and what they've done with their lives and what they've, you know, come back out and been there for their children, you know, even though their children missed you know, they missed their father for a lot of years over nothing, over you know, over drugs. I mean, what the hell? Nonviolent offenders, you know? I mean, you're talking about, you've got different communities, you've got different places in this country where there's not necessarily a choice. People have to make a choice, you know? And I mean, and you know, sometimes it's on the other side of the law. But the law is set up to take these individuals and remove them from society. You know, and you get a felony, you can't vote. You know, you lose your rights. You know, you can't get hired for a decent job. I mean, a lot of the guys I know, myself included, when I came out, I knew that I wasn't going to get hired by any company, you know, and I went back to school and I was getting a 4.0 and was on the dean's list and everything else. But I pursued my, you know, my company that I had started as working as a painter, you know, and it's changed into some different things. It's morphed into some different things. I'm my own boss. I'm very fortunate that I've been able to do that. I've worked hard at it, most certainly. I mean, I took everything that I had and gambled on myself. But a lot of people don't even have that opportunity per se, you know? I mean, there's a lot of guys that I know that, I mean, they went out to nothing. I mean, I came out to a bucket of paintbrushes and a beat-up old S10 truck, two-wheel drive, you know? I took my last $100 and I made business cards and started putting them out in the paint stores and got some jobs, you know, and invested in tools, and, you know, it was thin living for a long time. But I, you know, was fortunate enough to progress and to make a little something out of it. You know, it's not a lot. I'm not proud. You know, I've got what I've got. You know, and it is what it is. A lot of people don't have that. But somewhere along the line, we've got to address this because we've got a huge wound. You know, and in white people out there, you want to say, well, you know, Black lives matter. Well, all lives matter. Well, here's the deal. All lives don't matter until Black lives matter. Now, are there people out there that have hijacked this movement? There certainly are. There are. And I don't believe that Dr. Martin Luther King would be on board with, you know, looting, rioting, burning of people's businesses, destruction of property. That's not who he was. And at the base of Black Lives Matter, I wouldn't believe that that's what it's all about either, but I think that it's been hijacked. Where we go from here, I don't know. What I do know is that as a white man, I can't ever say what it's like to be a black individual in this country. I just can't. I have my ideas and my perceptions, but it's not reality. It's not something that really has any you know, tangible you know, backing behind it. I mean, I got a stupid fly flying around me here. It's November in Wyoming. I got a housefly in my garage. Anyway, what I'm trying to do is set up a platform and a format to just, you know, to approach this, because I think this is very important. It's important for the United States as a country and us as people to move forward. And we've got to somehow find a way to heal this. Like I said, there's the discussion of reparations. There's a lot of different things that are, you know, out there. But I think the first thing that has to happen is a conversation. And I think that as a person, I guess you know, I'm white America, apparently. I don't feel as I'm white America. I just feel like I'm just a dude. I'm a man. I'm no different than any other man. You know, I personally don't see it as such, but obviously because of the color of my skin, I am placed in a certain community, and I've got a lot of connections and friends in different communities. Um, and we've had these conversations amongst ourselves. And sure, they've been uncomfortable at times, but you know what? We're all actually able to laugh at ourselves. And we're also able to understand that at the end of the whole thing, that whether it's an individual from, Los Angeles, myself being from Wyoming, a person from Nebraska, a person from Frisco, Seattle, whatever, that at the end of the whole thing, we all want the same stuff. Like, these are guys that I was locked up with that were, taken from their families, and we all just wanted to see our kids. We wanted to just get back to regular life. And I think that we understood through going through that difficult time that we're all trying to do the same thing. We all want the same thing for our families, same thing for our kids. And until we can bridge these gaps and stop this division, that's the main thing that I see, is the division that the media creates, politics creates, religion creates. And I'll get into more of that down the road, because I've got quite a long story to tell. And the gentlemen that I know, they all have similar stories. And I mean, we've got a lot of ground to cover, but it's going to be coming. And it'll be on the way soon. I'm still trying to finish up my studio here, and once I get that done, then I'm going to start producing some content and hopefully doing some traveling. My podcast might even start out in Los Angeles for Friendsgiving, going out to see Keldrin Joshua and Joe Jackson, and hopefully run into Aunt Bailey and Vince Bragg and a lot of the cats out there that are very dear to me and good friends and guys I love. And I'll be taking my son out there with me for Friendsgiving. So be taking a venture from Wyoming out to Los Angeles for a little while. It'd be nice to see the ocean and breathe a little bit of different air and spend some time with some people that I've missed for a long time and greatly care about. I care about all you out there too. Okay, so like I always say, be good to one another. Be compassionate. Understand that you don't need to be judgmental about others. Take a look at the shoes they're walking in and try and place yourself in those shoes. Now, you can't adequately ever do that, but you can make the attempt. And through doing that, you gain understanding, and then you gain compassion. And really, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. It's compassion, because we all have the same ticket at the end of this ride. It doesn't matter how much you accumulate through this life, how many goods you have, what kind of toys you have, what kind of house you live in. The house you live in is yourself, and it's what's inside you. That's your house. That's the only thing that you have. And when you go out of this world, when you check out, the only thing you got is the people you loved and those who loved you. And I feel sad for the people that go out without having the people that loved them, because they were more concerned about goods, property, wealth, these things that are all going to be, left behind us. You can't take all that with you. You can't. You get hit with a dose of DMT upon your deathbed, and boom, everything flashes in front of you, and you see what did you really do while you were here. And all the material goods in the world, they don't mean a fucking thing. They mean nothing. Who you were as a person, who you cared about and who cared about you. That's it. So care about one another, love one another, hug your brothers, hug your sisters. Don't get caught up in this bullshit that's going on with this politics. This is nonsense. It's fleeting. It really means nothing. It's all a bunch of bullshit to divide us, and that's what they want. And I don't understand why they want. I don't understand why the quote unquote they, the powers that be, the elite, why these people that do have the power, they're going to do everything that they can to constantly maintain that power structure and be in control over you and I. But we don't have to let them do that. We have a choice. Call it free will or whatever, but we do have a choice. I mean, the fact of the matter is that these bodies we walk around in, we're just, they're just our cars. That's all. And we'll be leaving them behind at some point. All of us will. And so it doesn't matter if you're a Trump or a Biden or whoever, a Bill Gates, or if you're the guy down there on the street corner buskering for change playing his guitar. It doesn't matter, because we all punch the same ticket at the end of it. We all got the same ride coming. Keep that in mind, especially when you're looking at your brothers and sisters out there. Keep it in mind that none of us know what it's like to walk a mile in others' shoes. And so, in all things, be kind. Love y'all.